If you're an Apple Music user, you can now plug your Apple Music subscription into all major DJ software and hardware platforms and use that music to DJ with. It's quite a big piece of news because it's the first major platform to do that, and you don't get much bigger than Apple. We'll be talking about that today on the Digital DJ Tips podcast, but because this is an inside track edition, we're also talking about two other burning issues in the world of DJing, as we do every month. We'll be talking about whether you need to take a laptop with you into the DJ booth nowadays, or whether digital DJing has moved past that. And we'll also be talking about what software you really need if you want to get into this hobby. As ever, this is funded 100% by the students of our school, the Digital DJ Tips DJ School, which means everything you're about to hear is independent and unbiased. And again, as always, this was recorded in front of a live audience of our students who bolstered what I had to say and enriched the conversation with comments all the way through it. So thank you to all of you who did that. Let's get started. We're going to start off today by talking about the biggest news to happen in DJing for quite a while. And some people will go, meh, that's not big news. And other people will say, well, that's not something we want. But trust me, this is big. And it's big if you look at the number of people it will impact and the way it will push an obvious when, not if, area of DJing forward. What the hell am I talking about? I'm talking about one of the biggest streaming music platforms in the world, Apple Music, coming in force to DJ platforms. In force. It happened like nothing has happened for years from the point of view of us journalists covering this kind of thing, because we're not only a DJ school, we run digitaldjtips.com, which is a news website for DJs. And our inbox filled up with a flurry of emails which were notable for two reasons. One, there were loads of them and they were coordinated and from all over the DJ world, not just from one company, but several companies together. And two, they were very cagey. Instead of being from the contacts who I know by first name and have had a drink with and can sit down and chat on or off the record with and all the stuff that happens when you've been doing this for, a decade or two. Instead of that, it was all very formal. It was all very, you must agree to this non-disclosure before we tell you anything. And it was all cut and, cloak and dagger. And it was kind of like, wow, what is this? What is happening? And then it all hit at once. Apple Music, the second biggest streaming service, second only to Spotify, and of course, a far bigger company than Spotify at the end of the day, Apple Music was arriving in all the major DJ platforms at once. So that means that if you are a DJ that plays on Rekordbox, which is basically Pioneer DJ, Alpha Theta, the industry standard, if you like, the gear that you see, whenever you see DJs, basically it's going to be from that company. If you play on their gear, then certainly the more modern stuff and all the software stuff, it now all works with Apple Music. If you play with software like Serato, which is a huge platform for hip hop and scratch DJs, and especially in the US, it's arrived for you. And if you use probably the most advanced DJ platform in the world, Engine DJ, which is wonderful. It's very popular among mobile DJs especially, who just like its simplicity and its features and so on. Engine DJ is a great platform. It's arrived there as well. And it had already actually arrived in another platform called DJay, which almost now looks like a pilot scheme. It almost looks like a test run to check it will work before they rolled it out everywhere else. That particular platform is really big in Apple hardware and software. It's very big on iPads and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of used as a test. Anyway, the point is, Apple Music, guys, is now available. And the reason, let's talk about why this is so big. This is so big because it's a huge company. If you added up all the subscribers out there in the real world to all the music platforms, which currently you can log into from certain types of DJ software, if you added them all up, they wouldn't even come close to the number of people who subscribe to Apple Music. At the drop of a hat, Apple Music has now made itself available to millions and millions and millions and millions of people for whom if they happen to own some of the most popular DJ hardware or software, they can just press a switch. They don't pay an extra subscription. They don't have to do anything other than turn it on. And there it is, all their music. And DJs who are professionals or serious hobbyists who make money from this, who are purists, in other words, the kind of people that as a DJ school we deal with every day, as I said at the beginning, are kind of like, well, it's not got this and it's not got that, but they're missing the point. The point is this one initiative is going to push the idea of using streaming services for DJing over the tipping point into the mainstream. It will stop being an early adopter thing. It will stop being a fringe case and start becoming what people do. The road's never smooth and there's always going to be people for whom it's not right. But with the big elephant in the room, when are Spotify going to do it? With the big elephant in the room notwithstanding, this is huge news. So if you are an Apple Music subscriber, and let's face it, they try their hardest if you're into the Apple ecosystem to get you to do it. It's part of their Apple One subscription, and it's, you know, always offering the chance to get it on a trial and all that kind of thing. But if you are an Apple Music user and that's where you keep your music, then now, if you own DJ gear, you can just turn it on, assuming you've got the right stuff, and you're good to go. There's more than that as well. Apple have put a lot of work into making sure that there's stuff for DJs on their service. So they'd actually quietly been adding many thousand DJ mixes to Apple Music, but they've also put a whole new DJ category in there, which you can only assume they're going to build on. You know, the fact that Apple are taking this seriously, I'll be honest, surprised me, because I just thought it was a use case which is too small for Apple to care about. You know, DJing is big for us, it's our passion and so on, but it's a tiny market. One of the problems with DJing is it's such a small market that you can't reach critical mass and commercialization and, as I say, tipping point for all manner of good ideas. You just can't do it because there's not enough people who are going to jump on board, because there aren't enough DJs overall. But it looks like Apple has decided that this is something they want to do, and they really have gone in hard on it. There are a few other things that make it interesting if you're going to get into the weeds. One of them is that the way that Apple works with your music is if you own music and you put it into your Apple ecosystem, it's suddenly available on your phone and on your iPad and on your laptop and so on. And so if that's the way you manage your own music collection, and there's pluses and minuses to doing that for DJing, by the way, if that's the way you do it, then that music's also going to be available in the same place, which is quite interesting. None of the other services do that. So yeah, it's interesting, and it's certainly going to change things. If not today or this week, certainly over the coming months and years, we will look back and say that is when everything changed. I'm sure about that. You know, not least because until now, you had two choices if you wanted to learn to DJ, and you are using something like Spotify, right? Let's face it, if you're not using Apple Music, you're going to be using Spotify. Probably the other way around. I know Spotify's probably got 4 or 5 times the number of subscribers as Apple Music has, right? That's the really big one. But until now, assuming that you're a normal, in inverted commas, person who is under the age of 40, you probably don't own an awful lot of music because you just subscribe to a streaming service, right? And DJs traditionally have owned all the music that they play. And so until now, if you decided you wanted to get into DJing, you had to do one of two things. You had to go and start building a music collection, which, by the way, is, as a DJ school, what we always advise DJs to do. Our students are always taught to stream the music they like and buy the music they love. But nonetheless, that first day, that first week, that first month, you want to start doing this, you've got to go and start buying tunes, right? Which you probably don't know what you want to buy or where to buy it from or the format to buy it in, and you're not ready to do that yet. Or you subscribe to a streaming service. It gives you loads of music to play with. But the problem is, until now, you've not been able to subscribe to one that anyone's heard of, frankly. And so you end up having to spend money just to get started that you weren't expecting to spend on joining services that you don't know about, you haven't heard of, you're not sure if they're right for you. Well, no longer. You know, you just turn on your Apple Music subscription, or even if you don't have one, it's a known quantity, right? The leap from Spotify to Apple Music is a lot less than the leap from Spotify to one of the more specialist services that beginners would be forced to do until now. So it's definitely big news. Now, in the world of DJing, the opinion has been split. Now, we've had the usual, you will own nothing and be happy type, these people are only in it for the money and all the stuff which isn't ultimately very helpful and can be applied to all areas of life, frankly. So we had in our comments, and especially on our live stuff on YouTube, where it's unfiltered, right? On YouTube, it's literally everyone's there, and we had to wade through all that stuff. But we did get to some very interesting and constructive comments on this whole thing. One of the things that people didn't like was the fact that it's not available for a lot of systems. It's been rolled out quite substantially, but there are big DJ platforms it's not on. Virtual DJ, unfortunately, is not on. Traktor, unfortunately, it's not on. These are big DJ platforms, not as big as the ones it is on, but they still have a substantial following. And so people aren't happy with that. Also, quite interestingly, it works on certain hardware that doesn't need a laptop. But again, it's not everything. So even with modern hardware being pretty good for many years now, you have to have the most up-to-date version of the hardware in order to use it. And there's lots of people who spent a lot quite recently on hardware who've been saying that they just can't get it to work. And other things that we've heard people saying are, they tend to be the more esoteric things. So some of the features that DJs have been enjoying in the last couple of years that have started kind of dribbling into software and so on are not available on this platform. Like, one of the things people have loved is real-time acapellas and real-time instrumentals, where you just tap a button on your DJ gear and suddenly the vocal is isolated or it disappears and that kind of thing. That isn't available with this platform, and it is available with some others. Whether they add it or not in the future, I don't know, but it is worth keeping an eye on that if that's something you wanted, and waiting until it's added. Now, there are technical issues with this kind of thing, and one of our students, Sarah, with us live today, has said, while this is a fantastic thing for existing Apple Music subscribers like me, I foolishly installed it without disabling the cloud, and now I have my personal music collection cluttering up my DJ library when I use Apple Music. I'm trying to find a way to disable it. It definitely is a minefield, this kind of thing. Interestingly, it will lead us on nicely to our next topic, because we're going to be talking about DJ software and the things that in the old days, when you bought music on vinyl, right, and you had two analog turntables and an analog mixer, it was a hard hobby. It was like learning to play a musical instrument in a way that maybe it isn't now. It's a lot easier to get great results from DJ gear now with all the modern tools, but it hasn't become simpler. You need to be computer literate, you need to understand software. And again, like Sarah says, you can easily make silly mistakes that might take you an evening or two of work to back out of. So I totally feel your pain there, Sarah, that's for certain. So let's move on from the comments about that I've just been scanning in the background here, and there's been some very interesting ones. So if you are a digital DJ tips student, do go and look at the recording of today's show in your private group, and you'll be able to join in with those comments and so on. But I'm going to move on now to our next topic of discussion for today. With apologies to people, some of whom are even on today's show, which I always am very humbled by, so you know who you are. With apologies to people who make wonderful but optional software for DJs, we're going to talk now about the software DJs really need in order to get into this hobby, doing it the modern way, digital DJing. What software do you really need? What are the things that you probably are not going to be able to live without in order to do the basics? And the basics, the way we define it here at Digital DJ Tips, is being able to play DJ sets in the way that you envisage when you start this hobby. In other words, if you want to play a DJ set online because you've seen people in social platforms DJing and you want to be able to do that, what software do you need to do that? What software do you need if you want to just make a mixtape, right? And you want to share a mix with the world? What software do you need if you just want to get out there and you want to play your first DJ event, whether it's at a party or a residency or whatever? What software do you really need? And it's interesting because a lot of it isn't actually DJ software. So let's talk through this. We're going to put some stuff in the show notes to help you with this. So don't worry about if you are really at the moment, right at the tipping point of becoming a DJ and you want to just know everything, don't worry about scribbling any of this down because I'm not going to go into specifics and I'm not going to go into where you can go and get this stuff from. We'll put some stuff into the show notes to help you with that. Really, the purpose of this segment is to get you thinking a bit differently about a problem that any hobby DJ comes up against at some point in their learning curve. And it really is a problem that arises because of two things. It arises because of, number one, not knowing what you don't know, right? So there is a law of teaching that says you start off by not even knowing what you don't know. And then you get to the point where you know what you don't know. At least you know the path ahead of you. And then it's all the hard work to get to the point where you're brilliant at this. But when you don't know what you don't know, you are more likely to fall. And this also, by the way, is the same. Even if you are a competent DJ, you're more likely to fall. In both instances, you're going to fall for it, but certainly as a beginner, for what I call shiny new thing syndrome. And shiny new thing syndrome is, oh, that looks good. We all do it. I think we're programmed as humans to do it. It's not just dogs that chase shiny things. It's people that chase the next thing that they think is going to make their life brilliant, right? And in DJ software, there's always something that looks like a must-have. And honestly, to be frank and not to throw mud, it's not helped by the way some of these companies conduct themselves. Paying YouTubers and paying influencers and paying people who, in my personal opinion, should know better, to just say, this is the one thing you need now, or you're going to fall behind, and all that kind of thing, right? For anything new that comes out. It can be hard to separate the signal from the noise in all this stuff. So yes, software is great. And yes, software, we're going to move on to talking about the difference between laptop DJing and DJing where you don't have a laptop, where you're using standalone gear, what's called standalone gear, a little bit later on. And again, this question will come up there. Software is great because it can give you stuff really quickly that to build it into a piece of equipment might take years or it might never happen, right? So software is by definition cutting edge, it's early adopter and so on. But the issue for beginners especially, but for all hobby DJs for whom this isn't something that you're doing 4 times a week and change at your peril, right? Add in something new. Sarah knows about this, right, Sarah? That breaks your whole collection. Well, it's annoying. But it's going to be a deal breaker if you're a professional DJ and you've got to play 3 gigs this week and you're on a plane and you just made that mistake. Professional DJs tend to be very, very conservative about changing the way they work, and that includes software. But hobby DJs don't have that, right? So what software do you really need? And again, with apologies to some of the wonderful programmers and developers and so on who make amazing software, but it's optional. Okay, so this is what you really must have to get started and to start learning and to start getting stuff out of this hobby. And I'm including some software here that covers you whatever it is you want to get into here. So quite obviously, the first thing you need is your DJ software. And interestingly, you're going to need DJ software whether or not you want to DJ with a laptop there. Now, I had a conversation with someone who's very high up in one of the companies that makes standalone DJ gear. Again, we'll be talking about that in a minute. I had a conversation with this person on WhatsApp last night who was talking to me, funnily enough, about the Apple Music thing. These are not random podcasts. I do pull the big hot talking points in this industry into these inside tracks. And he was saying, look, the whole point is you shouldn't need to use a laptop. And I get it, you shouldn't, but you have to. You do have to. You have to use a laptop because music is digital and music is something that you should own the stuff that you love. And in order to get that stuff, you need to have a laptop to buy it, to organize it and so on, right? So you need DJ software in order to prepare that music for DJing with, even if the actual DJing is going to be done away from your laptop. You just do. And of course, if you're a laptop DJ, well, then you're going to have your laptop with you and it plugs into your gear. So you need DJ software. And one of the things beginners have to choose is which platform to go for, because there are several, and we're not going to go into the ins and outs of this here, but you need DJ software. So that is something that you can't escape from if you're just trying to get started here. You're going to need that. It will come with your gear. There are pitfalls and so on, but you need that. There's no getting around it. If you want to get into this hobby as a DJ producer, then you better start learning how to make music alongside DJing, because they come hand in hand. And the beautiful thing is they feed into each other, because DJing will tell you what happens on the dance floor and will feed into your production, or production will give you ideas that you then can test out as a DJ in your DJ sets. The two things are not the same. And just because you're a good producer, it doesn't mean you're a good DJ. And just because you can DJ, it doesn't mean you're going to ever be able to make music. But if you want to do both and you're prepared to put the work in to do both, they do fit together nicely. But you better start learning them together. There's no point saying I'm going to learn one first and then the other one. So in that instance, you're going to need production software as well. It's a whole other world. And you get all the shiny new thing syndrome in production software. For everything that's released in the DJ world, there are probably 50 things released in the production world. But the good news is you only need one piece of production software. You choose. The big names are easy to find, but you're only going to need one. It's much better to learn properly your DJ software, which as a DJ school, that's why we have courses which are dedicated to the big platforms like Serato and Rekordbox and Traktor. It's much better to learn your DJ software inside out and stick to one, and the same with your production software. Again, we just concentrate on one here at Digital DJ Tips. We concentrate on a piece of software called Ableton Live. But if you want to use one of the others, if you're a Mac user, you might have Logic because it comes at quite a nice price and runs on your Mac quite nicely. You might have another piece of software called FL Studio, which used to be called Fruity Loops, as in Fruity Loops, FL, but they grew up. I much preferred Fruity Loops. Anyway, they're the big names in this. Pick one, stick with it. So you've got your DJ software, you've got your production software. There are a few other things that I think you need. We've actually already talked about one of them already today. You're going to need a streaming service. I don't think you can be a DJ or a producer or frankly a music lover in 2025 and not have a streaming service. And that means downloading the streaming services app or apps, which will help you make playlists and do all the cool stuff that you can do with those. Because streaming services give you access to all the world's music, and as a professional or a serious hobby DJ, that means that you're hearing more than everyone else. And surely that is the baseline requisite for being taken seriously as a DJ, hearing more than everyone else. And then you're going to buy the tracks that you love. Which brings me on to the next couple of pieces of software. And these are a little bit more technical, but hear me out because I think they're very important. The first one is an audio editor. An audio editor is a piece of software that lets you load a piece of audio. So it could be a song, it could be something you're producing, it could be, I don't know, a sample from a film that you like, a bit of dialogue. It could be any audio at all. It lets you load that audio and do stuff to it. Make it louder, make it quieter, edit it, clean it up, add effects to it, export it in a different format, whatever. It's like a toolkit. Imagine a toolkit. Imagine a plumber or a carpenter with their box of tools. An audio editor is like your box of tools for your thing that you craft, and the thing you craft is of course audio. So an audio editor has no single purpose. It can be what you want it to be, but it'll let you prepare audio. And that can be in fact, it is essential for DJs to prepare audio because there's lots of reasons why you might want to do that. And there's no point me telling you them now, because when you come across them, when you get a song that you love, but it's got 20 seconds of silence weirdly at the beginning, you're going to need to be able to edit that. This is where the audio editor comes in. If you get a file of a really old record that just sounds thin and quiet, you're going to want to be able to beef that up. This is where an audio editor comes in. And I could talk forever, but hey, we've only got a certain length of time on this podcast. Trust me, you're going to need one. The one that most people go for is a piece of software called Audacity, Audacity. It's free, that's why. And it does all this stuff, sometimes called a wave editor because that's one of the formats of audio. But an audio editor is important. Now, music files have more than just music in them. They have metadata, they have stuff about the music. It could have a piece of artwork attached to it. It could have the album artist. It could have the CD it came from, like 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. It could have the year, the genre, and all kinds of other data. This data is called ID3 data. I don't know why, but it is. And an ID3 tag editor is a piece of software that lets you alter that data. A good one will let you do things like rename the files based upon that data. So you could have a music file that could be named with the artist followed by the title. And you can do this in bulk, and you can tidy up whole collections and whole chunks of music. And an ID3 tag editor alongside a wave editor or an audio editor, to give it its more generic name, those two things are the toolkit that you need to kick any digital music files into shape. And together they are about as technical as it gets, apart from the next tiny little utility which just comes up again and again and again. The good news is this one is increasingly built into DJ software in some way, shape or form, but you can get for free this piece of software to do what I'm about to describe. And it is a piece of software that lets you record the audio that's going on in your computer. So in your computer, if you go to a recording app, like on a Mac it would be QuickTime, or any audio recorder, I'm sure there's an equivalent in Windows. If you go to that and you click record, it's going to ask you what you want to record. But unfortunately, normally your options are going to be one, the microphone that's attached to that laptop. It won't let you say record what's going on in my DJ software, or record what I'm playing in YouTube at the moment, or record what's playing in my browser, or whatever. It won't let you do that. And this is just a tiny little utility called an audio virtual routing app or something like that, which lets you do that. And it's just very, very useful because, for instance, when you're using a streaming service, here's looking at you, Apple Music, because of the license restrictions, you're not allowed to hit record in your DJ software. Your DJ software can normally record stuff. If you have one of these apps, you can just say, hey, listen to what's going on in my DJ software and send it off to record in my recording app. And you can get around it that way. It's another use. So one of these little apps to do that can be very useful as well. And I'm going to end my list with just one more piece of software that's nothing to do with music at all. But it's probably, apart from the DJ software and production software, assuming that you're going to want to do that as well, probably apart from those two, the most important one of all. And that is your backup software. Because your music and the stuff that you know about your music, in other words, all that juicy data, is valuable. Not only that, your DJ software knows stuff about your music as well. You might make playlists in your DJ software. You might analyze your music, and you might have cue points and other information that help you DJ properly with that music. What happens if your laptop crashes? What happens if it gets stolen? You might lose all that stuff. And so your backup software is one of the most important pieces of software. And I think having something that is automated is just the way forward. If you're a Mac user, Time Machine is built in. Carbon Copy Cloner is a very, very popular piece of software. Something like Sync Back on Windows, for instance. There's lots of these out there. But having a backup of your music and the data about your music is just so, so important. And so apart from, depending upon what you want to do, we've covered most use cases here, right? We've covered recording your sets. We've covered DJing out. Well, I suppose we didn't cover live streaming, right? You want to DJ online. You want people to tune in and watch you DJ. So in that instance, you need some software to put on your laptop, or a second laptop normally, to do that. And the app everyone goes for is called OBS, or I think it's open broadcast software. Little slip I always make there. OBS anyway. It's free, it does the job, and lets you plug in some kind of camera, a webcam or something, plug in your audio and broadcast. But apart from that, they would be, you hear tech people and geeks talking about, what's your tech stack? We have a tech stack here at Digital DJ Tips, all the apps that we have to have in order to get the lessons and the subscriptions and the podcast and the website and the videos out there to you. We have our tech stack. Well, I think we've just gone through the DJ tech stack, and there are lots and lots of other apps which are fantastic and which can help you. But if you're trying to just get started with the basics, they would be the ones that I would put on my computer. And I would think very, very hard about anything else. I would kind of install it with a view to taking it off again when it had done what I needed, or when I decided actually I could probably get away without it or doing what it does in other software. Maybe in a future podcast, we will look at some of these other apps that you can get, because there's some amazing stuff out there. But for beginners listening to this, or for people who just think, you know, shield me against shiny new thing syndrome, hopefully I've covered most of what is useful there. I mean, this is the stuff our students are always asking us about, and I flicked through the laptop in the studio here and looked at the stuff that we've got on there, and these are the things that we open over and over and over again. Thank you for all your comments, my fantastic live audience, about this. Mixmaster G, who does make some wonderful software should you want to move your collection from one piece of DJ software to another, for instance, is here in the chat, and he says even setting up those virtual audio cable apps in a way that works properly can be a challenge. It can, this stuff can be a challenge for sure. I agree. OBS is fantastic. Thank you for those of you who are correcting my slip there. And Ralph says there's a backup app called Disk Genius, which I'm going to assume is a Windows app. So thank you very much for that. Chris says MPG3 tag. MPG3 or MP3 tag? I'm not sure, Chris. Has been very useful for me for metadata. A couple of you saying, why don't you just use your DJ software to edit the artist and the remix name and the year and the genre and so on? Well, you can. Your DJ software will edit the same data essentially that you could edit in an outside app, but an outside one will let you do things in bulk, and it will let you do things like renaming files and so on. And so it's always good to have something independent of your DJ software, I think. And I think we're going to move on from the very technical. If you're still with us now, either I've done a wonderful job or you're amazing and not at all fazed by tech talk, because we really have just gone deep. It's hard not to, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to conquer this stuff. You're going to have to learn the stuff that you finally realize you don't know, but you should know about. It just has to be done when you're a digital DJ, or you'll be like my dad. God bless you, Dad. But he says, don't send me photos by email that are so big. I can't make them smaller on my computer. I don't know how to do it. So I literally have to take a photo on my phone, and then I have to shrink it to a size that looks good on my dad's old monitor screen so he can see the kids. God bless you, Dad. Don't be like my dad. Not if you want to be a successful digital DJ. You're going to have to learn this stuff. Again, God bless you, Dad. Love you. Let's move on to our third and final topic today. We're thoroughly warmed up and ready to talk gear. Everyone likes to talk DJ gear. We've talked software, we've talked music. Let's move on and talk gear for our last few minutes together. And we're going to talk about, if you are deciding what DJ gear to go for, whether you should go for a laptop and a controller. A controller is just a box that you plug into your laptop to control the DJ software, hence the name. Or whether you go for a standalone system, and a standalone system doesn't need the laptop. You do the work on the laptop, as we were talking about a minute ago, to prepare all your music. You would normally do that. And then you plug in to your standalone system that music. You can either do it with a physical drive or over the cloud, but you access that music from the laptop, so it doesn't need the from the DJ gear, so it doesn't need the laptop there. Most standalone gear is all-in-one, and that means it's just one box that does everything. Professional standalone gear is not all-in-one, because you have separate units for the decks and mixer and so on. And this is good, of course, in the pro DJ booth, because if something breaks, they can take that one piece of gear, replace it with a spare one and send it off without everything breaking. But for hobby DJs and for semi-pros, generally, they're going to go for all-in-one. So you'll hear the words all-in-one and standalone used interchangeably, but they're not strictly the same thing. So which one should you go for? If you're new to this, if you don't know, then let's talk it through. The laptop route is the most popular one. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, most people own a laptop. And if you've bought a laptop within the last, let's say, 3 years, it's probably going to be fine for everything your DJ software or your production software will need. To the point, at least, where you're ready to upgrade everything, including your laptop, right? So it can get you started, not for a few weeks or months, but probably for your first few years. And then you're going to need a new one anyway, right? So a laptop is a wonderful, wonderful tool that can do all kinds of things, as we know, but it can certainly handle what DJing needs generally. So if you already own a reasonably modern laptop, buying the box that controls the software on the laptop is not an awfully big extra expense. So it's cost effective. The caveat is the software companies are becoming more and more stingy, and they are becoming more and more cash hungry. And what that means is that they're going to make you pay for stuff that you maybe don't know you're going to be paying for when you buy the hardware. So do be careful, and we talk about this a lot to our students here at Digital DJ Tips, being careful that you're not going to be hit with software subscriptions or costs that you weren't aware of at the beginning. It's the old printer syndrome, right? You buy a printer and it's $50, but the ink costs you the same every time it runs out every 6 weeks. So there is that to worry about. But assuming that you go in eyes open, it can be a very cost-effective way of learning to DJ. You get all the latest features first. So a lot of the features that are now available across all kinds of gear, like streaming, we've already talked about stems and sampler and so on. These things are starting to appear on all-in-one standalone gear, but they came to laptops way, way, way beforehand. So you are going to get the latest features first. Laptop gear is generally less reliable because it's linked to a laptop. And so you're going to need to be aware that sometimes you might have crashes, which generally aren't the case with standalone gear, which tends to be more reliable. So that's worth thinking about. But also worth thinking about is it's no cheaper if you need to buy the laptop as well. So let's say you've been stumbling on for the last 10 years with an old laptop because, hey, it does everything you need. And you think you're going to buy a DJ controller because you see people like us showing off amazing features in our school or on our YouTube channel or whatever. And your laptop is quite old. It will not cope. You know, for instance, to give you an example, we were talking earlier about stems. And stems is something that is so cool at the moment. Lots of DJs are loving it. Not everyone, but lots of DJs are loving it. Where you can literally just touch a button while you're DJing and you turn a song into an a cappella. I mean, this is amazing, right? That needs usually a very modern laptop, and it needs a lot of RAM, a lot of memory. So if you haven't got a 16 gig in the Mac world, it would be an M Mac, a modern Mac. M doesn't stand for modern, but you know what I mean. One of the new silicon ones and not an old Intel one. You know, if you haven't got that, then you're going to find that none of these features work on your gear. So you're going to be buying a new laptop as well. Suddenly, it's not that much cheaper. And it might be a lot more expensive. But that crappy old laptop you've got will be fine for preparing the music for standalone gear, because it's not mission critical. It's not real-time performance-based stuff. It just has to churn through the work. And so if you have got an older piece of computer hardware, you've got to factor that cost in as well. So laptop's less reliable, no cheaper if you need to buy the laptop as well. And also there is a sense with laptop DJing, way apart from the fact that sometimes it's frowned on in certain countries, certain types of scene, certain clubs or cities or whatever. It's like, oh, use the gear we've got, don't bother with your laptop. You know, apart from that, there is this kind of sense, and it's no smoke without fire, because there is some truth to it, that if you have a laptop set up between you and the audience, you're going to spend your time staring at the laptop. It was very unfairly nicknamed Serato face, Serato being one of the big apps, which is unfair because there's other DJ apps out there. But you know, the problem is that you don't have to be quite so organized with a laptop as you do with standalone gear. With standalone gear, because you've got smaller screens and you're probably bringing your music with you, you've thought about your playlist, you've got everything in a rough order, you know what you're going to be doing. With a laptop, you can literally open it, plug it in, and now you've got every tune you've ever bought since you were 10 right in front of you with equal prominence, right? So you can imagine how that's going to get you like a rabbit in headlights, just staring at the screen, frozen, thinking, what am I going to play next? What am I going to play next? It's huge restaurant menu syndrome, right? Have you ever been to one of those restaurants, like in an airport or whatever, where they're trying to cater to everyone? And so they've got page after page after page of food, and you take twice as long to order as you would with a smaller menu, because analysis paralysis. You know, laptop DJing does get in between you and your audience if you're not careful. It does get you staring at that screen if you're not careful. And it does get you looking through all your music instead of a carefully planned playlist if you're not careful. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So what about the all-in-one gear? What about the gear that doesn't need a laptop with you in the DJ booth? Well, this gear has got some obvious advantages. It looks more like normal DJ gear, if you like. Normal, I don't really think normal is one of those words we're meant to use, overuse nowadays, but you know what I mean. The kind of stuff that you see when you're out and about, right? It looks more like that. There's no laptop there separating you from your audience. The DJ seems to be doing what DJs do in a more authentic way. Now, as a DJ school and as people who are into DJing, we know that's rubbish. You can be just as an authentic a DJ on laptop gear as you can without it. But you might feel like it's more natural for you to leave the laptop at home. For security reasons, you might feel it's more natural to leave the laptop at home. This kind of gear does what it does, and that's it. You learn what it does, and there's nothing else to learn. You're using the gear to do what it was put in this world to do. With laptop software, it's always changing. They're always adding things. So it's a different vibe. And some people just prefer the idea, look, my DJ gear is my instrument. I just want it to do what it does. And funnily enough, to give you an example that's not connected to DJing, but is connected very much to running a DJ school, we have since, I don't know, the mid-2010s, been presenting live lessons inside our platforms and in public. And we do it multiple times a week. Now, we've been through all kinds of equipment, and we started off, guess what, with a laptop and software. And we slowly tried everything, and we slowly shifted our focus. And now everything we do in that world is done on hardware. There's no laptop anywhere near. The idea of having a laptop involved in going live to the world fills me with terror now. We literally plug an Ethernet cable into our hardware and it goes straight out to the internet. And I'm pressing buttons and pushing sliders on a piece of hardware. To me, that is just predictable. It never goes wrong. And I am free to concentrate on being a good teacher. And I think some DJs feel the same thing about their DJ gear. With no laptop there, they are free to concentrate on DJing because they know the gear is going to do what they ask it to do in the same way every time with no variations, right? So there is that about all-in-one gear. Now, of course, it's not all plain sailing. If you want the new features, if you want the stuff that software DJs are doing, you're probably not going to find it, or it won't be quite as complex or as upfront, or it maybe isn't even there at all on your standalone gear. So there are compromises to make here. Your standalone gear will cost you more if you have a good laptop. You'll tend to find it's got smaller screens on it, so you haven't got that immersive, especially when it comes to looking through your music. You haven't got that. You've got to be organized on standalone gear when it comes to your library and so on. Again, as we talked about, there could be a plus and a minus there. There's also a couple of other things which are practical. If the gear breaks, it really is broken. It's almost like your computer and your DJ gear have just broken down at once and you've got to send the whole thing off for repair. And it might just be that it can't be repaired. So now you've got an expensive brick, which is not quite the same thing with computers and with a controller, because in a way that's modular. In a way, you know, you're going to be very unlucky if both break at once, right? So that's worth thinking about. Also, obsolescence is a thing, because when a piece of standalone gear is obsolete, it really is obsolete. Generally with a DJ controller, as long as your software is up to date, you can keep hacking things. You can keep getting a reasonable amount of use out of it. For, you know, I've got DJ gear in the studio that's 10 years old. That's perfect. I can still use it. I can still DJ fine on it because the software isn't 10 years old. Yes, in the end, it will stop working properly and so on. But you tend to get a longer life with that kind of gear. So it is worth bearing in mind that kind of obsolescence thing as well. But the final twist on this discussion, which goes on and on, by the way, but this is a new twist, is this. Increasingly, the people who make the standalone gear that doesn't need a laptop make it work with the laptop as well. So you have a choice. You can plug in your laptop and DJ with it that way, or you can unplug your laptop and DJ the other way. And I think that this is what's driving the growth in that side of the DJ industry. We're seeing the number of people using that kind of gear steadily growing year on year. And I think that's part of it, because you get the best of both worlds. with the standalone gear, but you only get the software option with DJ controllers. And so I think people do like that flexibility. For instance, you can have the laptop at home, plugged in, all your music there, and then when it's time to go out and DJ somewhere where you don't want to take the laptop, you just export to a drive the music you want to play that night, take your drive, tuck your gear under your arm or on your trolley, and off you go. Laptop stays at home safely. So that could be the thing that is driving the growth in percentage terms against controllers out there that we're seeing. I think we're probably at about 20% now of our students who are using standalone gear, and that's pretty much doubled in, say, the last 3 years. Lots of you with comments about this in our live studio student audience, so thank you for this. Chris says, I played one show this year so far, and I'm trying to be conscious not to stare too much or hide behind the screen. I did that by confident playlist prepping so I could better engage with the people around me. It does require a lot of setup, beat gridding my tracks and so on. You know, at the end of the day, Chris, if you prepare a DJ set, you're more likely to get into the zone and enjoy it and be at one with your crowd when you're playing it. And it's why professionals they appear so natural when they're DJing, because they are literally learning on the job all the time. And so professional DJs, curiously, tend to not practice very much because they know what they want to do. And it's just a case of preparing their music and building their playlists. And so Lou says, I guess I've never gotten that big of a DJ to play on standalone gear, Phil. I agree that at least with a laptop, you can have a backup controller. So if your controller goes down, then you can just plug in another one. That's true as well. So what a lot of people who buy DJ controllers do, and what we recommend they do, is buy a cheap one, right? So you start off with a controller that costs you $200 or $300. I mean, I'm saying cheap, it's a decent amount of money. But that controller will be enough to learn on. And then when it's time to splash some more cash, you're going to want to spend a 4-figure sum, right? There's no point buying another one at $300 or $400. You're going to want to buy something that's semi-pro or pro. But you'll keep the old one, and the old one becomes your backup controller. That's very, very good advice there. So that's what we advise our students to do. And so, yes, you're right there, Lou. And Milton says, I'm sure it was mentioned, but what's a good controller for both standalone and laptop DJs? It's a good question, actually. And I think if you are thinking, you know what, I love the idea of having one unit to do everything, I would say go for a record box controller. A record box standalone that also works as a controller. So the high-end choice would be the XDJ AZ, which will cost you a lot of money. But the reason that you do that is that the software you run on your laptop when you want to use it as a controller, in other words, you want to use it to just control the software on your laptop in a performance, that software is the same software that you use to prepare the music to use it without the laptop. And so there's none of this worry about having to use different software for each use case. And that's the only system that can do that. So if that is your primary concern, I want to use it equally with and without my laptop, which one should I go for? Go for something that is powered by Rekordbox, and the top end choice would be the XDJ AZ. And that's where we're going to leave it today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. The Apple news is certainly very big, isn't it? If you would like to ask a question or be involved in one of these shows, then you can do that as a Digital DJ Tips student. Head to digitaldjtips.com, take a look at our courses and packages and grab something that looks good for you. Learn to DJ with us and get involved in these podcasts along the way. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, whether or not you're a DJ and whether or not you're one of our students, please do give us a 5-star rating or a nice comment on your platform. It really does help to get these podcasts out to a bigger audience when you do that for us. I hope you've enjoyed it. So in the meantime, from me, Phil, here in the Digital DJ Tips School Studio, get good, get out there, make the moments, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.